There's a lot of panic and a lot of concern that physicians in the United States have, but I would emphasize that though Ebola is a deadly disease, a scary disease, it's not a very contagious disease, and it really wouldn't find the U.S. a hospitable place to spread. The most important action for physicians in the United States to take, though, is to be aware of this outbreak and to emphasize travel history in patients that they may be seeing that have symptoms that are consistent with Ebola. Have they been to those 3 Ebola-stricken countries in the last 21 days? And if so, Ebola needs to be thought of, and they may need to have testing done, and proper authorities may need to be involved. We are at risk of getting imported cases of Ebola, not necessarily seeing spread of Ebola in the United States, but we do have to be on alert for what happened in Dallas. So of those 48 people that are considered direct and possibly direct contacts, they are not a risk to anybody because you can't spread Ebola unless you actually have symptoms. So when you're in the incubation period of Ebola, you are not contagious to anybody. So those contacts that are under watch in Dallas, they don't pose a risk to anybody. The other part of your question was, will this end? Eventually, what we're seeing now, we're about 13 or so days after the last contact people had with Mr. Duncan. And as you get closer to that 21-day period, we will hopefully not have any secondary spread of this virus. The reason this outbreak is different than ones we've encountered in the past is because it occurred in West Africa, which is a part of the world which had never experienced an Ebola outbreak in the past. The Ebola outbreak is occurring in states that have emerged from civil wars where there is a lot of distrust amongst the population with their government. They don't necessarily follow public health communication advice. For example, they run from Red Cross trucks, they hide bodies. The other part of this is that the epicenter of the outbreak is on a 3-border region, which makes coordination very hard because these borders are not tribal borders, they are colonial borders, and people freely move across them. It's another layer of protection, but I fear that it instills a false sense of security. Ebola has a 21-day incubation period, and during that incubation period, you will not exhibit fever. So if you don't have a fever, you can get right through screening like Mr. Duncan did. Also, drugs like ibuprofen and acetaminophen, Tylenol, can also mask fever. What this ends up doing is creating a false sense of security, because what if a case does get through? And I think that we have to anticipate another imported case to occur. You don't want there to be a backlash saying that you started airport screening and now we've got another case. That could be a very bad problem. The other thing is that this is mostly being done to make people sleep better at night because they think that something's being done. But in countless outbreaks, we've used temperature screening, and it hasn't necessarily been very cost effective because it's almost a needle in a haystack approach where you're really looking for something that you probably will never find. Just think of our exit screening that's going on in the West African airports. They haven't picked up one case of Ebola there. This outbreak has definitely catalyzed vaccine development. What we're seeing now is vaccines that were very close to beginning human trials are now being administered to humans. What we hope, though, is that people don't refrain from doing the important public health activities that are needed to stop this outbreak, waiting for this vaccine. This vaccine really won't be something that will be used in a large scale to stop this outbreak. It may change the face of Ebola outbreaks in the future, but for this outbreak, it's tried and true public health principles that have stopped every other outbreak that will be employed.